Before we get started with the comparisons, and before I introduce you to Scott Spencer, one of our partners and a pretty well-known gaffer in Hollywood, he helps us with a lot of our designs around here. Before I get into all that, I realized coming in the building today that I was missing an opportunity to show you something important. We have two sides to our office building, an A side and a B side, and the B side, where all the manufacturing goes on, hasn't been switched over to LED completely yet, and the actual entryway is still fluorescent. So I grabbed a camera and I shot a couple of stills, both of the A side and the B side, and that's what you're looking at now is the comparison. The one on the left is the B side. Notice how green it is, that sickly green that most of us are used to working under in those fluorescent lights. And on the right, on the A side, we've switched to fully dimmable Hollywood Lights LEDs, and they look fantastic. Just notice the natural color. It's just a really good comparison. I don't know, as I was walking in the building, I realized that I was missing an opportunity to show you something important. So there it is. Let's move on and show you some comparisons. All right, let's get into some of this comparison between the tubes. Before we get too far into it, the first thing I want to show you is from a construction perspective, most tubes, these are some of our competitors' tubes here, most tubes are not repairable. You buy them, they're cheaply done with very cheap LED chips and very inexpensive end caps that are just glued in. But when we got it actually came broken. One of the beauties of Hollywood Lights LED is that we make them so they are repairable. They have to be, because we're in the movie business and our equipment gets tortured out there in the movie industry. So we have to be able to repair things that people break. So literally 2 screws come out here, and then the end cap just pulls off. Like you see, everything is modular. Everything just pulls apart like this. This is a magnesium structure that we use just for structure, just to hold it in place. But the power supply goes right in the ends. These, if a chipset should go out, you just unplug it, plug a new one in. It's like Lego blocks. Everything's repairable right here in Sun Valley, California, right behind Burbank Airport. So we really build for quality. Well, let's just take some measurements just to show you some of the differences in the output and the color of these tubes. All right, the first tube we have to measure against was a very, very inexpensive Asian tube. Just in terms of construction, very cheap, inexpensive LEDs. The end caps, very, very inexpensive. They're glued on. They're not repairable. And in terms of dimming, this particular one does not like the dimmer very well at all, as you can see. Okay, it just doesn't really do it. Let's take some measurements, see what we're looking at. All right. Hopefully you can see this. We're at 3900 Kelvin, 71 CRI. It's a very, very low CRI. CRI is color rendering index. For those of you that don't know, it's the quality of the chip and the quality of the color. This is very, very low standard. This is under Energy Star rating standard or DLC standard. It's putting out about 1281 lux, which is actually a pretty good amount of light for this tube. All right, let's take a green measurement. This measure, you can see kind of on your skin, it's just very, very green. Let's see how much this is. This is carrying, I'll put a flashlight on this so you can see it. It's carrying a +8 in the green. I mean, that is just nowhere you want to be. That's a very sickly color. All right, let's move on to our next offering. Now, this tube was from Philips. At the time, it was a very expensive tube. Now you can probably pick it up for about $24. Again, very inexpensive parts, not repairable. The ends are just glued on. This one actually came broken from the manufacturer. We had to fix the pin when we got it here. And like I said, all our stuff is repairable. Let's check the dimming. And it really doesn't like the dimmer. Okay. Let's check some color. Alright, now again we're in that nice cool white range, 4000 Kelvin, but still in the just below 80 in the CRI range. That's still very low. This one puts out a little less. It's 1057 lux. Okay, let's check the green. Now the color is a little bit better, not quite as green. Let's see what it looks like. Alright, and that one's a +5 on the green scale, if you can see. Hopefully you can see that. Again, very green. Alright, let's take a look at our frosted tube. Notice first of all the dimming capability. Nice smooth dimming. Really nice. Let's take some measurements on this. Again, right about that same height. You can see we're right in that cool white area, 4000 Kelvin, 92 CRI, much higher, more color quality, putting out about 1236 lux. Pretty decent output. Let's measure the green. Now this lensing, the frosting will cut out about 20% of your power, and it'll also add just a touch of yellow. So I imagine this is going to be in the +2 area. Alright, so we're right in there in that cool white range, 4000 Kelvin, +2. So we're getting much better on the green. You can see just the skin is starting to look more normal. Alright, let's move on to our non-frosted cool white. Alright, again you can see dims very nicely. Let's take some measurements on this. Now notice, much higher on the CRI, 93 CRI. We're in that cool white range, 4000 Kelvin. We're at 1623 lux, so much more output. Let's take a look at the green. Now if you can see that, but it's +1 on the green. And if you take a look, skin color is looking completely normal now. Looks beautiful. Alright, and our last offering, let's take a look at our warm white. Again, dims very nicely. Let's take some measurements here. As you can see, you're in that warm white range, 3700 Kelvin, 94 CRI, just unheard of, and 1722 lux. So you can see the output on these is just astounding. Let's check the green output on this warm white. And here you've got a whopping 0 green. You can see the color is just beautiful, and again dims very nicely. Alright, let's move on to our high bay lights.